I had the great privilege in a moment of having a conversation with Simon Thomas. Just briefly, Simon Thomas, you may well recognise Simon. He has jumped out of aeroplanes. He's been on Blue Peter. He's most recently the host now of Soccer Saturday. And actually, funnily enough, I first met Simon when I was 11 years old at a Christian Union in Cheltenham. And I still remember just this young guy's passion for Jesus. And it's the greatest honour. We chatted this week. It's just incredible how our lives have kind of, how we do life and how we make connections with people over time. We reconnected before the summer and have built a bit of a relationship. And it's just a joy to have him with us today. So can we give Simon a massive round of applause? He's brought Darina and his family with him this morning. It's a joy to have him. Thank you. Thank you. So Simon, before we get into kind of the deep stuff,
I just wanted to apologise as well. I'm looking a bit tawdry. I've got sort of damp marks on my jeans. This is like with my little boy Theo, who basically destroys any outfit within 30 seconds. But any parents with young kids will know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got in the pool today, because I actually had stains all over me. So I just wanted to change my outfit. Totally get that. Hey, so first question. Who's your football team?
Well, it's not a good time to admit this, because I know Fulham had a terrific result yesterday.
Come on.
How many Fulham fans are here? There we go. Magnificent win in the West London derby against Brentford. I'm a Norwich fan. Yeah. I've been all my life. I grew up there for quite a time. I always believed, Liverpool, when I was young, were in their absolute pomp, and everyone at my school in Norfolk supported Liverpool. So we're talking late 70s, early 80s, and days of Dalglish and Souness and people like that. I desperately wanted to support them, but my godfather, who was a big Aston Villa fan, was very firm about the need to support your local club. So I went for Norwich City. We've had some good moments down the years, but at the moment we've just recorded 4 defeats in a row at Carrow Road in all competitions, setting an unwanted piece of club history.
Yeah, middle of the table at the moment. Yeah,
but we're drifting towards the bottom.
Okay, I was trying to be positive. I know the challenge with working out where your children support. I say sometimes here we have 3 boys, and one of them loves Chelsea, one of them loves Fulham. Some of them wear Chelsea shorts and Fulham shirts. It's all very confusing as a Man United fan, but we got a victory as well, so that's a relief. Another quick fire question: VAR, keep it or bin it? Bin it.
Can't stand it. It's ruining the game. We spend more time talking about VAR and waiting for VAR decisions than we do watching the game. That's why I love the Football League, because you get a VAR-free experience. And listen, there'll always be mistakes, but that's life. That's human beings. But no, get rid.
So Simon, give us a bit of a glimpse into your journey into broadcasting, what that looked like for you.
So I didn't really catch the broadcasting bug till I was at university. So I went to Birmingham University in the early 1990s. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I studied history, which would be absolutely useful for nothing over the rest of my life. But we had an internal TV station at Birmingham University called Guild TV. Nobody watched it. Literally nobody watched it. But we had a proper TV studio. I started presenting this program called The Lunchbox on a Friday lunchtime. And I got a real taste for broadcasting, a real taste for communications. I liked that feeling of a live studio, even though no one was watching. And I came out of university in 95 and I thought, right, I want to be a presenter and I want to be a Blue Peter presenter. I'd grown up watching the programme and it was just boys' own stuff, full of adventure, travel, amazing experiences. I thought, I am aiming quite high here. It's quite a popular programme. A lot of people want to do this job, but why not? So I was back in Beccles in Suffolk. So my dad was a vicar, so they'd moved to Beccles in Suffolk by this point. And I'd been a Christian all my life, so faith had played an important role in my life. There'd been times when I kind of drifted away from God and drifted back. But I was sat in a summer's afternoon in July 1995, and I'm thinking, Blue Peter is the one I want. I want to be a broadcaster. I want to be a TV presenter. And I was about to go downstairs. This is days before internet. So there's not all the list of editors of programs and producers on Google you can access now or go on LinkedIn. Literally had a book called How to Make It as a Television Presenter, and another book from The Guardian that listed every editor of every production company and program in the entire country. And I was about to go downstairs and write lots of letters to try and get some work experience, trying to get my foot on the ladder somewhere. And as I was about to go downstairs, because Dad was going out for a meeting, so I could jump on his retro Apple Mac and get these letters written.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't know if God's in this. You know, God's right at the centre of who I am as a person. It's the most important thing. And I've not even really checked in with him about whether this is just a selfish ambition that I just got sucked in by the idea of being famous one day, or actually is God in this? So I thought I probably ought to do this thing called pray. So I prayed to God. I didn't have much time because I could hear Dad going out. I was really direct. The thing I love about God is you can be direct with him.
Yeah.
I said, God, please, because I've given myself 3 years to make it, please give me a sign. This is what you want me to do. Amen. Went downstairs, about to write these letters. See on the left-hand side a whole bunch of magazines that my dad had. They were Christian magazines because he was a vicar. And on the front cover of one of these magazines was this subheader of one of the articles inside. It just simply said, why we need more Christians in the media. I thought, hello. Look at this. So I thumbed through to page 63 or whatever it was, and there's this amazing article written by a guy called Steve Shaw from the Oasis Trust and Pam Rhodes, representing Songs of Praise at the time on the BBC. And it was like the article had been written just for me. It was about encouraging people of faith to get involved in the mainstream media, not to criticise it from afar and say, I wish it was different, but if you want to change how your newspapers report things, if you want to change what's on your TV or coming out your radio, you need to get involved. Change it from within. Be salt and light as we're called by Christ to be in the Bible within those places. That was like my green light. Yeah. It took 3.5 years. I'd pretty much given up. And it was only, I mean, some would call these a sliding doors moment. I'd call it a God moment. But I basically profited from a guy called Rich Bacon who was presenting on the program. I basically applied a few times, never got anywhere. And he did something naughty with a Class A drug, ended up on the front cover of the News of the World, got sacked, understandably. And a few months later, I got the job. So it was around about 4 years it took me to get in.
Wow. Amazing. And so much of what you've done over the years, Simon, you've been very open in your world of, fame and in that world of kind of presenting, but also your faith. How have you navigated that with people over the years, Christians, non-Christians alike, being in that environment? What's that look like for you?
Well, there was a lot of expectation when I got the job on Blue Pizza because the good old Daily the Daily Mail, got hold of the story early. So it was going to be announced on a Friday, but on the Thursday, someone had leaked it from the BBC. And the only information they had, because of what happened to Richard and the way in which he'd been sacked from the show and such, that's extraordinary scenes down the front here. I'm not going to describe what I just saw, but it was quite amazing. There was a lot of interest in who it was going to be. Was it going to be the absolute antithesis of what came before? Was it going to be a goody two-shoes? And all the Daily Mail knew about me, which they then published in a big double-page spread, was that I was called Simon, my dad was a vicar, and I was a Christian. That was all they knew about me. But it was music to their ears because, of course, hey, here we got it. It is the goody two-shoes. It's the Bible basher. It's the Simon vicar. And he's taking over on Blue Peter. And suddenly you were launched without even having any say in it, into this amazing program, which back then, in the days of not everything being online and, things being very, very sort of split up as they are now, it was a huge program, a good program to get, 6 to 7 million watching it. That's like gold dust for a Saturday evening show now. And I was launched into this new arena as a Christian. And so, understandably, the Christians kind of leapt on it in this country, and they wanted me to come to every event and speak. I would have very well-meaning Christians writing me letters saying, looking forward to you witnessing about your faith on the programme. And I've always been a bit puzzled by that, because I couldn't have come on air on Soccer Saturday yesterday at midday. We're about to get stuck into another weekend of the Premier League and the EFL in Scotland and say, good afternoon, everybody, welcome to Soccer Saturday. Before we get underway, before we bring in the season, the 247th Merseyside derby, I want to tell you that the Lord Jesus loves you, he's died for you, and he wants to bring you fulfillment of life. Right, here's the team news from Anfield. I'd last 5 minutes.
I dare you.
But that was the expectation on Blue Peter. And I find it really difficult. I get sent, some of you here who don't go to church very often probably never heard of this. Some of you who do won't have heard of these. But there was a craze a few years ago for these wristbands. And they had on the initials of these wristbands just WWJD. It was nothing to do with JD and Coke. It was basically the initials for what would Jesus do? And lots of Christians wore them as a reminder in life when we're facing a difficult decision or maybe a compromising situation. We look at that and go, in this situation, how would Jesus react? I'd get sent these every week because Christians said, when you do the make on Blue Peter, those of a certain generation will remember the makes, it would feature very close-ups of your hands as you showed someone how to make a doll's gym out of toilet rolls. And bits of unused materials from around the house. So you'd have to keep your fingernails very clean. And Christians thought, wouldn't it be lovely to have a little wristband with WWJD? I mean, people watching at home going, what on earth is that? So I found it hard, that tension between being launched into a very big program as a Christian, but then the expectation of what that should look like
Yeah.
on a television program live on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah, and Simon, as you've been open, certainly in the most recent years, around some of your struggles in the area of mental health, and have really led the way in that conversation. As you took on Soccer Saturday, would you just speak a little bit into that? Obviously, coming back from that time, Blue Peter, and obviously there's a big journey in between that and Soccer Saturday, but some of what that's looked like for you in your faith as well, and some of the things you've had to learn about yourself in it.
I didn't have any real mental health struggles till about 8 years ago. I had 1 or 2 bouts of what I would call mild depression. So 8 years ago, I've kind of graduated to Sky. So I went from Blue Peter to Sky in 2005 and started on Sky Sports News. The ambition was to become a football presenter one day. I got the chance in the Football League, and I kind of worked my way up to get the job in the Premier League. So I was into my 2nd season. And sort of coming back to what I was saying about Blue Peter, that leap from doing the Football League, which I love, but it's not watched by as many people as watch the Premier League. It just simply isn't. And I felt that huge scrutiny suddenly being a Premier League presenter, because I noticed on my social media feed a lot more comments after every game. I used to steer clear of them because football was febrile enough without reading it on social media. Yeah, but I felt a real pressure. I don't think I was understanding what was happening in that first season, but I get to my 2nd season in 2017, and right from the off, at the start of that season in August of 2017, every time I was thinking about work, trying to work, preparing for work, I would feel that horrendous knotted feeling in your stomach, really pronounced anxiety. It was absolutely horrible. If you've gone through it, which I'm absolutely no doubt people in this place have, it's a really disconcerting feeling, because suddenly it feels like the foundations on which your confidence is built, on which you do your career and you produce the goods when you go on air, are suddenly beginning to vibrate, and everything suddenly feels very uncertain. And that kind of progressed over a number of weeks to when I'm getting really horrible panic attacks before going on air. I remember having one at Old Trafford. I was doing a Manchester United game, and we're about 15 minutes of going on air. I've got Graham Souness, Jamie Redknapp in the studio. And I had to run out of the studio, go to the loo that was adjacent across the bar, find the disabled loo that was unlocked and open, get away from people, and just had a full-blown panic attack. And then 15 minutes later, I'm on air. And I ended up having to be taken off air during that period to recover. So when fast forward to a couple of years ago, and I've been kind of in and out of work, I'd gone freelance, so I didn't get regular work. I'd done some Premier League stuff for Amazon Prime, I'd done bits and bobs for Sky, but I didn't have regular work. And suddenly, in the summer of 2 years ago, I had a call from my old boss saying, Jeff Stelling is leaving Soccer Saturday. And I gulped as he said it. We'd like you to apply for the job. And it's one of those moments where you go, I cannot do that job. It's insane anyway. You're covering 60, 65 games over 6 hours every Saturday, and you're asking me to take over from someone who's been an absolute colossus of broadcasting and a genius of what he did, Jeff Stelling, who's been doing it for a quarter of a century. No, thank you. But of course, I couldn't turn it down. And so I got the job eventually. And I found that first summer and that first season really, really difficult, because all the anxiety problems came back. If you've had imposter syndrome, that feeling that you are not good enough to be doing what you're doing becomes horrendous. On Soccer Saturday, I think because of what came before, it was like imposter syndrome on steroids. And I would find every Saturday I arrived at Sky to do Soccer Saturday really, really difficult. And the most important thing I did during that period, James, was this, is that I believe faith, and my belief in Jesus Christ and my faith in God, is something that should be woven into every aspect of life. It isn't just what happens here on a Sunday. It's what happens on a Monday, on a Wednesday, on a Friday, on a Saturday night out. That's where your faith is woven into. It's great to come here today, but it's what it looks like on a Monday morning. And what became so important for me during that season, I did it again yesterday before I went on air, I do it every single week. So I go to my dressing room at about 11:30, half an hour before we go on air, and I just get into that room and I get on my knees and pray, because I know that I cannot do this job without God. I really can't. People might say, what are you on about? You know, you can do it. Well, actually, faith has been so integral to my life. It's where God has led me as a Christian into the world of broadcasting, that I know He's given me the gifts to do it. I know in His strength I can do it. But any week where I forget to go in there into my dressing room and not pray, I remember 2 occasions it's happened. I sit at my desk on Soccer Saturday, I can hear the DA counting us down, 5 minutes to on air. I remember one week sitting there thinking, something doesn't feel quite right. I thought, I've not prayed. So I said, sorry guys, back in a moment, ran back to my dressing room, got on my knees and gave it to God. And it's an integral part of what I do, and actually in terms of managing mental health, because God is the unshakable foundation on which my life is built and countless lives here are built and beyond. And so when mental health strikes, and it can strike Christians and non-Christians, it doesn't care. If your foundation is the foundation of Jesus Christ, it's still hard, it's still disconcerting, but you know you can deal with it on a solid platform.
Simon, you were saying to me, because we call up in the week, you have a program you watch on a Sunday as a family that speaks a lot into your life and your experience of life and your faith journey. We'll just speak into that a little bit and what that's meant for you.
I love being honest. Can you just remind me what that is?
About the I think it's about tables and being fitted and things being
no, this is it, yes. So
I remember the name of it. I'm sorry, we don't watch
Repair Shop.
The Repair Shop. Anyone else watch The Repair Shop? You should be at church, 6 p.m.
Magnificent program. If you never watched The Repair Shop, the synopsis is very simple. People bring in loved items of furniture, or it might be an old guitar, an old piano, whatever it might be, that has immense significance to them. It might have been owned by a relative or a loved one who are no longer here, but it's fallen apart over the years. And this amazing team of men and women over the course of the program restore it to its former beauty. And when it's unveiled to the person who's brought it in a few days ago, there's this wonderful, amazing connection as they see this thing brought back to its former life. And often it's different to how it used to be, but it resembles something from the past. And there's this amazing moment because, do you know what one of the most powerful narratives in sport is? It is the comeback story. It is the comeback story. We may well get one in the Ryder Cup next weekend. We've seen it before, where one of the teams, whether it's Europe or the USA, we obviously prefer when it's Europe, sorry if there's any people from the States here, but when a team is down and out and they come back to win it, the miracle of Medina is one that we think about often. It's such a powerful story because there's something incredible about the story of someone who looked broken beyond repair and is brought back to their former glory. And that's why I love that program so much. And it's been such an encourager for me because I've been some really difficult times in the last few years. Obviously, the mental health problems I was talking about. I lost my first wife nearly 8 years ago. So my son Ethan sat down the front. That was his mum, Gemma. And she fell very, very ill, very, very suddenly 8 years ago in the autumn of 2017 and died from a very rare form of blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia, gone from diagnosis in the space of 3.5 days. And at that point, you feel like that smashed, broken piece of furniture that's brought into the repair shop, and you say to them, can you somehow rebuild this? And I have to be honest, in those painful, disconcerting, confusing weeks of grief over those months in 2017 into 2018, I never, ever, ever believed that I could be restored in the way that God has actually restored me. And it's been like, in many ways, a glorious, heavenly episode of the repair shop, because 8 years ago, I was broken. I was snapped in half. I'd walked away from Sky to look after Ethan. Everything that had been so good about life had suddenly disappeared. I still had my boy, but I had nothing else. Career gone. My first wife's gone. And everything felt horribly fear-filled. And yet over the last few years, it's been like this 8-year journey of God, the master craftsman, the absolute master craftsman, has rebuilt my life in ways that I never, ever believed was possible. And I come here today, still the father of Ethan, who's now an awful lot taller and the hair's an awful lot bigger, but I'm not going to go there. And I arrive here with Dorina, who I married 4 years ago. You'd heard him earlier, with Theo as well, who was born a year ago, and Talitha, who was born very prematurely, nearly 3 years ago. She's upstairs somewhere. And the way in which God has restored my life, and I want to say this because I think it's important this morning to say this is not everybody's story. You know, I'm not sitting here this morning saying, if you're going through something really difficult, or right now you feel on the floor in terms of life and in terms of faith, well, this is going to be the story of your life. It may not be, but what I can absolutely promise you, and that is why I've held on to my faith, and it's been so, so difficult, and he wanted to turn you back on God and say, I'm done with this, because how is this fair? How can this be allowed to happen, and yet it has happened when everyone prayed for it not to happen? Is that he walks with you through those valleys. He walks with you as you scale the mountains, as those tide waves of grief began to hit me 8 years ago. The one constant throughout all of it was God, and he never left my side. He's rebuilt my life in a way that I never, ever, ever believed was possible.
Simon, thank you so much for being so raw and real and honest. And it's just such an encouragement to so many of us. And I think one of the things that struck me when we began to get to know each other a little bit is you were sharing a little bit about, there was a moment, going back to Blue Peter, you had gone to train to do a certain type of jumping out of a certain type of aircraft, and you essentially were like, what am I doing? Tell that story, because I think it's significant. I think it's a picture really of many people's lives, but certainly your own.
So the bit of the story you'll hear in a minute, some people might think it's a bit of a coincidence, but I don't think it is. So one of the things that attracted me to Blue Peter, as I mentioned earlier, was that daredevil adventure that was part of the program. And I always wanted to skydive, and they've done it on the program for many, many years. John Noakes had done it way back in the day. Janet Ellis had done it. And it had been done about 4 years before. It was time, fresh audience in, new generation watching to do it again. So the plan was, very simply, well, not as simply, but the simple plan was for me to go out to San Diego on the west coast of America, where the RAF Falcons, the display team, basically practice every year, because it's blue skies throughout the winter. It's not here in the UK, it's warm. So they rehearsed all their summer shows back here in the UK in San Diego. So the idea was I would train, I would pass the accelerated free fall course, and I would train to do a display jump with the RAF Falcons at some air display in the UK the next summer. So out I go in January, very full of excitement, a little bit nervous, I'm going to be honest, I was quite nervous. And away we went when we got there. And I think I got to jump number 4 or jump number 5. And it all went not horribly wrong, because I wouldn't be sitting here if it had been horribly wrong, but it went a little bit wrong when one of my chutes basically didn't open. We're jumping out at 14,000 feet, you're plummeting towards the ground at 120 miles per hour. When you're learning, you pull at 5,500 feet. I pulled at 5,500 feet. There was an instructor either side of me, nothing happened. And basically afterwards they showed me the video, and they'd had to punch the parachute out. I mean, you do have a reserve. But I totally lost my bottle. I could barely do another jump. I think I managed 2 more, and the whole trip came to a grinding halt. And it was a film of failure in the end. But actually it resonated with the audience when we showed it, because it said, you know what, sometimes we do fail in life. Sometimes we do fall short, and it's okay. But about a year later, I said to them, because I'd gone back to Oxford and tried a few jumps, and I'd got my kind of bottle back. I said, wouldn't it be amazing to do another film where I go back to San Diego with the Falcons and I conquer my fear? That would be really powerful. They eventually said yes, because it's quite expensive to film something like parachute jumping out of a plane. And so we went back out to San Diego. We're staying in the same Holiday Inn hotel in downtown San Diego. And I don't know about you, but sometimes sights and sounds and smells fire off memories very quickly. And as I went back in, everything from the last year hit me really hard. And I went to bed that night knowing we're jumping the next morning. I persuaded the program to go out again. I couldn't sleep a week. I was scared witless. And the whole thing going through my brain through the entire night was this: even though I know that parachute jumping, they tell you this when you arrive, is safer than the car ride to the drop zone, and it is statistically, there's still nothing that focuses the mind more than putting your legs out the side of a plane and then choosing to jump out of a healthy aircraft. And I kept thinking, in the unlikely event that those 2 bits of fabric, my main chute, my reserve, and the nylon string that holds it all together fail tomorrow, I will find out if this God that I've believed in my entire life is real or he isn't. Whether I've been sold a lie for my entire life or he's real, and I just couldn't sleep. The next morning, I got up, I'm white as a sheet, my director's looking at me, sat about where you are now distance-wise, and he'd been on the program for years, no sympathy at all. He looked at me and said, "You're absolutely terrible." I said, "It's fine, it's just a jet lag, didn't sleep well." He said, "Are you bottling it?" I said, No. See, Alex, I'm fine. Inside, I'm going, "I'm not fine, this is going to be a disaster." Now, I got this amazing friend called Phil, who's a Christian. He's been like a mentor to me over the years. And he'd said to me ahead of going, if you need to call at any time, you've got a panic on, you just need some reassurance, give me a call. So I stepped out of the hotel, went across the street to get some Dunkin' Donuts for the boys to have in a minibus on the way to the drop zone. And I rang Phil, and I said, "Phil, mate, I'm in massive trouble. It's night time back in the UK, it's late evening." I said, "I can't do it." I persuaded him to spend all his money and come out and do this again. I can't do it. He said, "I'm going to pray for you right now." I said, and I told him that I've been struggling with this whole idea that it might all be made up, this faith that I've got. And so he just said this simple prayer, because I was running out of time. He said, "Simon, I pray right now in Jesus' name that you would know today, before you jump out of that plane, that this Jesus figure that you follow is for real. Amen." And then he said, "Go and get it, bud. Go and do it." As I'm coming out of Dunkin' Donuts, literally 5 minutes later, and this is where some people will say, "What a coincidence." I don't see something far more significant in this. I came out, I'm about to cross the street. Obviously in America you don't jaywalk, you wait for the green man. And as I'm waiting, this guy taps me on my right-hand shoulder. I look around, there's a young American guy there. I've never seen him in my entire life. I just looked at him, he said, hi. I'm not going to do the American accent. He said, hi. He said, I just want to tell you that Jesus is real and he loves you. And I look back ahead, stunned by what I'd just been told. I look back to my right where he had just been. And the guy's vanished. And I can't think where he'd gone to. The amazing thing that happened in that moment is I see that as a God moment. I see that as a God moment where God was putting his hand on my shoulder just minutes after Philip prayed and saying, do you know what? All those things you struggled with last night, I know this is scary. I know jumping out of a plane is scary, but you're going to be okay. And I just went out. First jump was hard work. By the end of the week, I've done 50 plus jumps. Yeah. I'm jumping in shorts and t-shirt by the end of the week. I'm doing somersaults out of the plane, having the time of my life. But the genesis of that week, its point where it began, and the point where the triumph over fear that we showed to the Blue Peter audience all those years ago began when Phil prayed, when that man appears out of nowhere and reminds me that the God I have followed for my entire life is real.
Come on, isn't that amazing? We've got some video evidence of that, which we'll play after the service. So another reason to stick around after, as well as the charcuterie board as well. Did we mention that? Charcuterie board. So we're coming kind of to the...
You have a charcuterie board?
Yeah, I know. Wow. It's not every Sunday. It's for the special occasions.
Very West London.
It's a very... Yeah, tell us you live in Fulham without telling us you live in Fulham. So, I mean, have you got any kind of further things you just love to share with these guys? One of the questions I think I have is, as a dad of three boys, looking at where the world is at today, without going too political because it's incredibly complex, what do you see as the way for Christians we are supposed to, and for those of us that are here but maybe not Christians, how do we navigate where the world is at today? As someone who, for you, you're obviously in that spotlight, you're on the screen, you're surrounded by people with opinions, you've got a lot of followers on social media. How do you navigate kind of your faith and politics and what that looks like for you?
Well, it is really difficult to navigate it right now because, of course, there's lots of different opinions out there. There's quite wide-ranging opinions. There's some really big things happening in the world right now. And, you know, I'm someone who's been following what's been happening in Gaza over the last 14 months or so in terms of choosing what to watch, and the few journalists that are still in Gaza and watching the footage and being absolutely heartbroken by it. And it's really difficult to know what to say. It's difficult to know what to say at a time where everything just feels so uncertain. It feels uncertain in terms of where we're heading as a country. It feels uncertain in terms of where we're heading politically. It felt hugely uncertain only a few years ago when coronavirus hit and everyone was just full of anxiety and fears about what on earth the future is going to look like. What I do when I'm trying to navigate this, and I think it is the most important thing to do as a Christian, is I always come back to the life of Jesus Christ every single time. So when I look at a situation and I think, what on earth do I say in this situation? What on earth do I say that brings any sliver of hope when it feels so utterly dark and so utterly hopeless? I come back to the life of Christ. It's why I found it quite difficult with that big march in London last week, with so many people claiming that this was a march and we're all about Christianity in this country. I'm looking at them and I'm not hearing anything coming out of your mouth that sounds particularly Christ-like. That's not a criticism of them. But I come back every single time to the life of Christ. And what Christ has done in my life over the last few years, but actually throughout my life, is he's given me hope in the most hopeless of situations. He's rebuilt me from places of total mess. He is a God of compassion. He is a God of love. He is a God of understanding. And he is a God who wants to get alongside each and every one of us. And so when I'm struggling to know how to be vocal about something that I'm really struggling with, I look at the life of Jesus and go, but it is my duty to say something. I cannot as a father, I cannot as a Christian, I cannot stand by and see the pictures that I'm seeing coming out of Gaza at the moment and say nothing. I just can't. I can't, because I want to bring some hope. I can make very, very, very little difference in this situation. I really can't make much difference. But what's important is to speak the truth of Jesus Christ. And that is that whatever life is looking like right now, whatever life has looked like before, and whatever life is going to look like in the future. The glorious truth
Yeah.
of Jesus Christ is that he is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And however uncertain and difficult life feels for you now, he is the rock that is unshakable. And the biggest thing that I've learned in my life, and have felt in my life, and I've experienced in my life, is that when life trembles around you, the rock of Jesus Christ doesn't tremble or split.
Amen. Amen. Can we give Simon a massive round of applause? Shall we stand if we're able? Yeah,